19. Reading articles. Hey Alex, it's important that you read lots of articles written by legal academics. Other than writing legal essays yourself, there is no better way of improving your legal essay writing skills than to read legal articles. They provide you with models of how to argue properly when you are writing an essay, and are a fertile source of ideas and arguments that you can draw on or react against in writing your essays. So here are my tips on getting the most out of reading articles. The basic approach. Okay, so you are going to read a particular article. What should be your basic approach? Go through the article twice. The first time, you are trying to get an idea of what the article is basically saying, what the overall point of the article is, and what arguments are being made or dismissed in order to make that point. The second time, you should look through the article to see if it has anything interesting to say about any particular cases. You can then make a note of these observations in your case file, under the name of the case in question. Your aim in going through the article for the first time should be to enhance your understanding of the law, thereby helping you to critically evaluate the law and write good, solid essays about it. Your aim in going through the article for the second time should be to enhance your knowledge of the law, thereby helping you to appreciate the full range of legal issues raised by a specific legal problem. The first run through. When I say run through, I mean it. Hustle through the article. Don't make notes as you go through it, that will just slow you up and make you feel miserable. Read the article at speed, asking the following key questions all the time. 1. What is this article basically saying? 2. What arguments are being made in favor of the article's basic point? 3. What are the arguments against the article's basic point? And how does the author dismiss them? 4. What do I think of the author's arguments? Those are the only things you want to know on the first run-through. Once you've read the entire article through, getting an idea of what it has to say, if it has anything to say on these issues, then take a fresh A4 piece of paper and make some notes about the article from memory, organized around these key questions, referring back to a specific part of the article only if necessary to refresh your memory. Let's now look at the above 4 questions in more detail. 1. What is the article basically saying? In making a note on question 1, try to reduce the basic message of the article down to 5 or 6 lines at most. If you can't do that, then it's doubtful whether the article is going to be that much help. Either it is very unclear in what it wants to say, or you are very unclear about what it wants to say, and either way the article's not going to be of much help to you. If you have a nagging feeling that you have completely missed the point of what the article has to say, Google search it to see what other people have to say about it, or ask your fellow students what they thought of it, or ask your teachers what they think its basic message is. 2. And 3. What are the arguments being made being dismissed? In making notes on questions 2 and 3, use numbers to identify the different arguments that the author makes in favor of his or basic point, and the reasons why an author thinks that an argument that might be made against his or basic point should be rejected. If the author is making 4 arguments for what Hesh wants to say, then your notes should reflect that and number those arguments 1. 4. Numbering the arguments helps you get clearer about what the author is actually saying instead of a mishmash of jumbled assertions. You have 4 crisp, and make sure that when you make a note of the author's arguments, you express them as crisply as possible arguments on which the worth of the article will depend. 4. What do I think? In making notes on question 4, and in reading the entire article, be aggressive. In the excellent film Searching for Bobby Fischer, highly recommended, Lawrence Fishburne's street speed chess player intimidates his opponent with some trash talk. What's that? Is that the best you got? Is that the best you got? Uh-huh. You ain't got nothing. No. That ain't it. That ain't it either. You're going to have to do much better than that, boss. Much better than that. Come on, show me something. Show me something, Grandmaster. That is exactly the sort of mentality I want you to adopt on going through an article for the first time. You should be hustling through the article, challenging it to show me something, to tell you something interesting about the law. If the article doesn't seem to have anything worthwhile to say, which may well be the case, don't be afraid to conclude that it doesn't actually have anything worthwhile to say. Maybe check first with some other people to see if the article was actually saying something, but you missed it. But if no one can clearly express what the article was trying to say, then throw it aside as a failure. Well, not literally, just put it back on the shelf politely. It's no good and not worth noting. You should adopt the same aggressive mentality in making notes on question 4, which requires you to evaluate the arguments that the writer makes in favor of his basic point, and seeing whether the writer does a good job of dismissing the arguments against his position. Don't let the writer walk all over you with his claims. Resist. Ask yourself, do the writer's arguments stand up? Are they circular? Are they based on a false premise? Are they illogical? Don't assume the arguments are any good. Be aggressive. Test the writer's arguments out and see if they collapse under scrutiny. Don't be afraid to say, "That ain't it. That ain't it either," to the author, no matter how revered they might be. Some harsh words about articles. As an aid to helping you adopt the sort of mentality about articles that I want you to adopt, it might help you to know the current state of play within universities on writing articles. I've already mentioned in my letter on choosing a university that how much money a university and the particular faculties within the university receives by way of research funding from the Higher Education Funding Council for England HEFS depends on how highly its research is rated under the Research Excellence Framework, or REF for short. Under the REF, each university's faculty that wants research funding from HEFS will submit articles and books no more than 4, and preferably 4 written by members of the faculty for evaluation by panels of academics. And each faculty's research output will be given an overall star rating: 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, or 1 star. The more stars a faculty gets, the more money it gets from HEFS. In the preface to the first edition of his book, Unjust Enrichment, Peter Birks recalls some advice that he was given at the start of his career by Barry Nicholas, the distinguished Roman lawyer and principal of Brasenose College, Oxford, where Birks was teaching my old college as well. Teach, do not worry about writing. Nobody wants to hear from you till later. Birks admits that the advice seems to come from a world which is no more, and that is largely due to the REF. There is now intense pressure on academics to produce research outputs that can be used to earn research funding from HEFS. In the greatest assault on academic freedom that the UK has known since the 17th century, some faculties convene their own internal panels to evaluate their employees' work, thus none too subtly conveying the message that their academics can either shape up and start producing outputs that other people think are worthy of 4 stars, or they can ship out and be replaced by other, more conformist academics. And academics looking for promotion or a better job elsewhere know that they won't get anywhere unless they have a good research profile. So they also put pressure on themselves to churn out books and articles with a strong bias towards articles, as they are quicker to write in the hope that some of them will hit the 4-star jackpot. So academics have now been turned into journalists. In large part, they write not because there is anything they passionately want to say, but because the nature of their job requires them to write. And the result, at least within law departments, has been a significant degrading of the quality of academic writing. This is absolutely no reflection on the quality of the academics producing this work. It is just a reflection of 4 aspects of the way life is under the REF. First, a lack of passion kills. If an academic is writing about a topic, not because he or she is desperately interested in it, but because he or she thinks that this would be a good topic to write about for REF purposes, then that will show through in the writing. The ideas will be boring and boringly expressed. Secondly, an academic who is pretty good is probably capable of producing 2 really good books and about 10 really good articles in the course of his or her academic lifetime, so 12 pieces in all. For an academic who is a genius, and they are very rare, you can probably double that 24 pieces over a lifetime. But the REF and the pressures associated with the REF demand a much higher rate out of output from academics. Nominally, 4 pieces every 4 years. But in reality, because not every piece of work will be evaluated as 4-star worthy, at least 8 pieces every 4 years. The result is that even good academics end up producing works which are, frankly, forgettable. They are only capable of producing a limited number of pieces that are of very high quality, but are being made to write far more than that. Thirdly, it takes time to produce high-quality work. You need time to think ideas out, and time to consider how best to express those ideas. But the pressure to churn material out means that a lot of academics are never given, and never give themselves, the time to produce high-quality work. It's far better for an academic's career to spend 3 years writing 8 articles than spend 3 years working on one book, especially as in terms of research outputs, an article counts as being as significant as a book. Fourthly, good ideas for books and articles are hard to come by. That's the major reason why even good academics are limited in how many high-quality books or articles they can hope to produce in their academic lifetime. So academics who are under pressure to produce material have to cast around for ideas as to what they might work on. In doing this, it is very tempting for legal academics to focus on recent developments in the law. Recent developments, new cases, and new legislation make for tempting research fodder because they are easy to write about. And so long as you get in early enough, no one else will have written about them and stolen your thunder. So the last 10 years or so have seen a proliferation of articles about recent developments in the law. A lot of this work is good, and a lot of it useful for students trying to come to terms with a particular area of law, but man, it's boring as hell as well. Other academics get tempted to focus on law and that is, to write articles that seek to link law with some other subject. Sedley L.J. once wrote a parody of such articles entitled Law and Plumbing. It's available online for free if you Google search it. The more obscure the other subject is, the better for the academic, as it's less likely that anyone else will have written about the relationships between that subject and law, and made it more difficult to say anything else about those relationships. Again, these articles tend to be really boring and pretty irrelevant to anything that really matters. Finally, a third group of academics feed off other people's good ideas. They write articles summarizing and criticizing ideas that other people have come up with about the law. This is very flattering for those other people who can then convince their faculties that their work is having the sort of impact that merits a high-star rating. But ultimately, my response to Professor X's theory-type articles descend into a morass of technicalities and fruitless point scoring that doesn't actually help anyone. So it's entirely appropriate for you to approach any article you are reading in a skeptical spirit. You shouldn't assume that the article must be good and must be worth reading. The institutional pressures under which academics now sadly work mean that isn't the case. So hustle through the article, always asking, "Show me something," and if it doesn't, forget it. The second run through. Okay, let's assume you've read a particular article and made a note on it on a piece of A4 paper, summing up the basic point of the article and the key arguments made in favor of that point. Now you can go through the article again, this time looking to see whether it has any points to make about particular cases that you have already made a note on. What you are looking for are 1. Good accounts of what happened in the case and how it was decided. 2. Explanations why the case was decided the way it was. And 3. Criticisms of the decision in that case, or the way it was decided. It may also be that the article mentions a particular case that you don't yet have a note on. If the case seems interesting enough, then use what the article has to say about that case as the basis for creating a note about that case. Once you've completed the second run-through, you can put the article aside and not bother looking at it again. You've got what you need from it, and it's time to move on to something else. If you come across a subsequent article that trashes the article you've just noted, then obviously go back to your A4 note on the original article and make a note of the subsequent article's criticisms, also making a note of whether you think those criticisms are valid or not, so that all the relevant notes on that article are all in the same place. Finding more articles to read. The reading lists that your teachers give you will refer you to a few articles relevant to the areas of law you are studying. But it is always worthwhile looking around to see whether there are any other relevant articles out there that might be worth a look. Try the following. 1. Go on to Westlaw, click on Journals, and type in a few key terms related to the area of law you are looking into or want to research into the free text box, and then press Return. Get ready to turn up a lot of articles that will have no relevance to what you are looking for, but there may be a few downloadable articles that will be helpful. 2. Heinenline provides a wonderful database of legal journals, particularly from the United States. If you have access to that, then click on Law Journal Library on the left-hand menu, and then type some key terms into the search box and set Heinenline to search text. You will again turn up a huge amount of irrelevant material, but there may be a few things out there that will be helpful. 3. SysRN stands for the Social Sciences Research Network. A lot of legal academics now post on SSRN articles that they are working on. Go to SSRN www.ssrn.com to see if there is anything on the area of law you are interested. Click on Search and type in some key terms into the Search Terms box, making sure that SSRN is set to search title, abstract ID, or keywords. 4. Doing a Google search for key terms related to the area of law you are studying may well turn up some relevant materials. 5. One problem with doing 1.4 is that it is unlikely to turn up details of papers that have been written for published collections of essays on various legal topics. Information about what is out there in such collections has traditionally been difficult to track down. If you know the title of a particular collection of essays, then Amazon or the publisher of the collection may give you a list of essay titles, but it will be almost always the case that you don't even know of the existence of a particular collection of essays. One partial solution to this problem is the Index to Common Law Festschriften collections of essay in honor of a particular figure distinguished in the legal world. You can find this at http://magic-lbr Auckland CNZ Festschrift. However, most published collections of legal essays are not Festschriften literally, celebration writings, and so don't fall within the index. The index is also not particularly user-friendly. In order to try to begin to fill this hole in our abilities to know what is out there in the field of research on legal topics that might interest us, I created on my website www.mcbridesguides.com the PCC Law Library database. This basically lists all the significant legal essays published in collections of essays that are held in the Pembroke College Cambridge Law Library. So if you are working on a particular area of law, look up the corresponding list of essays relating to that area of law on the database, and look through the list to see if there are any essays that seem to relate to the particular issue or topic that you are interested in. If there are, then you can look up the essay in your own library, if it has the collection of essays in question. If it doesn't, then you can always request your library to obtain the collection in question, or see if there is a PDF of the essay available on the internet, either on SSRN or via a Google search. Looking for material on the internet can be very time-consuming and involve you in making huge numbers of searches for different combinations of keywords. In order to stop this happening, I would advise that you set yourself a time limit of 3 minutes to search a particular source of legal material. Whatever you can't find within 3 minutes probably isn't worth wasting your time on searching for it. I hope this is helpful. The last section makes me think I should write to you about the various legal materials that are available on the internet for you to use. I'll get back to you about that as soon as possible. Best wishes, Nick.